And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly begin to move. The most important with the practice of meditation is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how you sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It has everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakening. He was a human being, no different than anyone in this room, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. What that means, very simply, for every one of us in this room, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens. More reactions. That's what we get every day. This practice is simply learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to everything else that's happening throughout your day. So all we're working on is closing the gap where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. Imagine going a day without being disturbed by someone. The night is young, most of you won't make it home before you're disturbed by someone. This practice is not easy. Meditation is not an escape, as often people think it is. It's not closing your eyes and pretending you're sailing down a river and looking at all the birds and trees and flowers and thinking life is grand. Life is filled with chaos. This practice is learning to get quiet and still within all of that chaos. Once we stop trying to change, fix, control, manipulate everything and everyone around us, hoping they do this, hoping they do that, wishing they would do this, wishing they would do that, why didn't they do this, why didn't they do that? We spend so much time focused on everybody else's mess. This practice is learning to focus on your mind, your thoughts, your words, your actions, and your response to the world around you. And when we do this, our life changes. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's sitting, breathing, learning to be kind to yourself and every single person you encounter every moment of your entire life. That's why it's so easy. You just have to go be nice to people. Anyone ever told you to be nice to people? What, we haven't all figured it out by now? That's the essence of this practice, especially if you're new to Buddhist practice. It really is. Think good thoughts, speak good words, do good deeds. That's the hardest thing to do. But that's what it comes down to. The world doesn't work how we want it to. Someone else asked a question right before we started tonight. And one of the things I always say at the end of meditation is life is beautiful, everything beautiful just as it is, sitting and breathing. And their question was pretty much related directly to that statement. And the way they said it was, they said, I always hear people say everything is perfect just as it is. And so, as often with Buddhist teachings, and I know for me, I completely contradicted myself. And I said, things aren't beautiful and they're not perfect. They're just as they are. Everything is as it is. I always say at the end of meditation, everything beautiful, just as it is. And the reason I say everything beautiful just as it is because when I look at the state of the world, and I look at the state of my life, and I look at the life of those around us, we have many choices, but two general ideas. One is to look at things with hatred and anger and disgust and think everything sucks and is miserable and terrible. Or we can look at things with an open mind and open heart and have gratitude and appreciation and find beauty in everything as it is, even all the misery. Because ultimately what it comes down to is your perception of a situation doesn't change the situation as it is. But your perception of a situation alters and determines your reaction. And for me, I choose to see things as beautiful versus ugly. It doesn't mean that there are things going on in this world that don't need to be, in my opinion, fixed and changed and done differently. But I have to choose how I'm going to look at that. And if I bring anger and hatred into a situation that is very likely already filled with anger and hatred, then all I'm doing is adding more anger and hatred. And so for me, it became a healthier view to look at things as beautiful and to see how to work within that. Then the person asked, well, there's, things in the world, being of service that I'd like to go do. I said, well, then go do them. We often complicate things, really. If you want to help people, help people. If you want to give back, give back. If you want to sleep, sleep. It's one of my favorite Zen expressions: when hungry, eat; when tired, sleep. I mean, it's that simple. We complicate this stuff. But you wake up each day, and some days you wake up and you're in a good mood, and some days you wake up and you're in a bad mood. And most likely you woke up for the most part the same place, same time, same everything as the day before. But our perceptions change quickly. And that goes back to what I started talking about when we walked in, which is understanding the impermanence as everything is changing. Impermanence is beautiful because if we're in a bad mood and things weren't impermanent, we'd be stuck in that bad mood forever. But the flip side is if you're in a good mood, what does that mean? Good mood won't stay forever either. So that comes back to also what I talked about earlier, which is patience. Being patient with yourself first and foremost. Anyone in this room done anything good and helped people? Anyone in this room done anything bad and harmed people? Well, welcome to life. No, there's always one who's never done anything that harmed someone. It's nice to be sitting with someone who's never done harm. So I'd rather just stop there and open up to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice. I'd much rather address what's on your mind and go from there. Yeah.
Could you say something about bodhicitta?
Yeah.
I don't quite understand it.
Yes. So bodhicitta is Buddha nature. And at the beginning, is this question stemming off of Kempo Karma's talk from this weekend?
Partially, I wasn't here for his explanation.
Okay. Well, his is much better than mine, but I'll go ahead and give you one anyways. Now, he talked about it a bit. That's why I didn't know if you heard any piece of that. But bodhicitta is Buddha nature. So at the beginning, for me as a practitioner, when I take refuge in the Buddha, right, I'm not taking refuge. You look at the word refuge, safety, comfort, protection, whatever that word means to you. We're not taking refuge in him himself. He died 2,500 years ago, and as I always say, he can't help you much right now. You're on your own. But you're taking refuge in bodhicitta, or Buddha nature. And what that means is the Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama, was a human. He woke up, he ate a little bit, slept a little bit, went to the bathroom a little bit, lived, and then he died. We do all of those same things. So Buddha nature is the awakened essence that lies within us. And if Siddhartha Gautama as a human being could figure out how to end his suffering, I find a lot of safety, comfort, protection in knowing that if I am kind to myself, if I'm kind to others, if I think good thoughts, speak good words, do good deeds, I'm going to suffer a lot less than I did when I didn't do those things, right? And so bodhicitta, specifically Buddha nature, and that, you've heard me talk about this, but that's that teaching the idea that we all are already awakened. The awakening is not like it's not like getting on the freeway and driving 40 miles north and then turning right, right? Bodhicitta, Buddha nature, we all have it. But it's the metaphor for those who've never heard this on a cloudy day. Is the sun still there? Yeah, right? Can't see it? Why not? Why can't you see the sun?
Because of the cloud.
Because of the clouds. But the sun is always there. So within us, that bodhicitta, that Buddha nature, that awakening is all already there. Our clouds, to bring it back to the essence of Buddhist teachings, is the Buddha said we suffer because of greed, anger, and ignorance, the three poisons. We're greedy, we always want more. We're angry, we don't like the way things are. And we're ignorant, thinking our view is correct. Anyone here think your view is correct? Awesome, phenomenal. It's great to be with so many brilliant people whose views are all correct. That's phenomenal. You should all talk to each other. You might have a few disagreements, right? So that's the ignorance, is we think we're right. And once these practices of greed and anger and ignorance depart, we overcome greed with generosity, we overcome anger with compassion, we overcome ignorance with wisdom. The clouds move away, the three poisons move away, and we come back to our own bodhicitta or Buddha nature. Does that help?
Yeah, I read the clouds are like the ordinary mind.
Sure.
As opposed to the
Pristine mind.
pristine.
Yeah, it's a good book. Pristine mind. Yeah, and again, you'll see, this is what the Buddha taught 2,500 years ago. And you will see thousands and thousands of different ways of approaching the teaching of Buddha nature and bodhicitta. And, as the Buddha said, there's 84,000 paths to figure out how to end your own suffering. What that means is it's different ways for different people. So the ordinary mind is what we tend to roam around with, wrapped up in views and judgments, likes and dislikes, this dualistic mind. And the essence of Buddhist teachings is to go beyond the dualistic mind, to be with things as they are, beyond judgment. That's tough to do, especially if you're all sitting there judging what I just said. Do I agree with that or do I disagree with that? Does that align with my views or does that not align with my views? Thich Nhat Hanh, if you all know, Thich Nhat Hanh is a great Vietnamese Buddhist master, and he says nirvana is freedom from views. And to me, this doesn't mean that for me as a practitioner, I don't think I'm going to ever be, have no views. What that tells me is my views are only my views, and every other human being I encounter has their own views. But I spent most of my life trying to prove my views are correct. And that's where the suffering comes in, because we think we are right. And we get very good at convincing others and ourselves that we are right. And maybe we're not. I don't want to shatter anyone here who's always right. Just throwing it out there as a possibility. Yeah. Other questions?
So is healthy debate not Buddhist?
Is healthy debate not Buddhist?
Debating with somebody about something?
In healthy debate, everything is Buddhist. Right? It's a great question, but let me back up again for you or for anybody here who might be brand new. Often people phrase questions with, do Buddhists do this, or do Buddhists think that, or is this Buddhist, or is that Buddhist? It's important to understand, this isn't just for you, but for anyone here, that the Buddha taught for 45 years and he died. And since then, there have been so many different cultures and teachers and great masters who have shared the Buddhist teachings differently, right? So when we say this blanket statement of do Buddhists do this or do Buddhists do that, we always have to recognize we're just humans taking what one person said and trying to integrate it into our life. So Buddhist principles can apply to going to church and believing in Jesus. Buddhist principles can apply to driving on the 805 freeway at 5 o'clock. Buddhist principles can apply to anyone here have struggle or challenges with family members. It can apply to them as well. So everything is Buddhist and nothing is Buddhist. It's about looking at what the Buddha taught and applying that into your life, which part of your life will include debate, disagreements, right? Have you had a debate recently?
I enjoy debating with people about different topics.
Okay.
So, yes.
Okay. Yes. So yes. This will be fun because we can debate about your question about debating. Do you ever get angry when you debate?
Not usually.
Really? Do you ever lie?
Republican.
Well, I'm glad that you're the one person who never gets angry when they debate, but let's just pretend people get angry when they debate. So the real way to look at your question, my first master, she used to say, never look for answers, always look at the way you ask questions. So to me, that question isn't about is debating Buddhist or not. It's about what are my actions, my karma, body, speech, mind, what am I thinking, what am I saying, what am I doing in the debate? And if I am angry during this debate, then I'm not practicing what the Buddha taught. If I am not listening during the debate, then I'm not practicing what the Buddha taught. I won't repeat your comment, but your comment, what you said, then that also is not practicing Buddhism during that moment, right? So it's really a reflection on what are my thoughts, what are my feelings, what am I expressing in this so-called debate? Tibetan Buddhism is filled with debate. It's a big part of Tibetan Buddhist practice to really challenge and debate each other on the essence of the teachings and the way we live our lives. But again, where is it coming from? That's really the question. Greed, anger, and ignorance, or generosity, compassion, wisdom? And, the world is filled with people who don't agree with you. And if you're trying to convince them that you are right and they're wrong, then that's about the least Buddhist thing you can do, in my opinion. The practice is to listen, to understand. It doesn't mean you have to agree with them. It doesn't mean you have to think they're right. But the essence of this practice is understanding that all of these people in the world that will disagree with you and you will disagree with them, don't they have a right to think and feel how they think and feel just like you? And to them, they're doing what's right. But somehow we roam around thinking, no, we are right. And they are wrong. That's the danger. Again, to reference, not Thich Nhat Hanh specifically, but the example I often share is after the Vietnam War, and the monks were asked, what was your greatest fear while you were being tortured? And they said our greatest fear was losing compassion for the individuals who were torturing us. I'm not saying we're there, but that's a beautiful expression, I feel, of what the Buddha meant about compassion. Understanding that for someone to act that way towards others, they must be feeling so much anger, so much confusion, so much hatred. And I'm sure all of us at points in our lives have felt anger and hatred and confusion. And those are not good feelings to have. And when we act from anger and we act from hatred and we act from confusion, it causes pain and suffering. So when others are doing that, the practice is to have compassion for them and to listen and try to open the heart and open the mind and maybe begin to understand, why do they feel this way? Why do they think this way? Why do they act this way? Buddhism doesn't mean you just stay silent. It's very engaged. Again, Thich Nhat Hanh has really coined the phrase engaged Buddhism, and it's about, looking at all the social justice issues in the world and how do we engage with it. We don't just hide out and ignore it, but we also can't throw more anger onto it. That's the practice. So the next time you find yourself debating, you can ask yourself, Am I practicing love and kindness and patience and listening? Or am I practicing anger and greed and ignorance because I think I'm right?